Christmas lights are back! The build-up to Christmas begins here on Big Mouth. Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Welcome to Friday's, yes, Friday's edition of the dceu Daily. Joker movie is released, and I still haven't gone to see the theatrical version yet. Lucky I got to see the test screening, but I'm desperate to see the final cut of this movie, and everyone's talking about it, and I'm so envious, but I can still talk about it, because I have seen some kind of version of the film. Now, today, on today's dceu Daily, I do want to make it I'm going to give you my spoiler review in this video as well, but today's video is really the story of two mentalities, of two reviews. I'm going to read an article here from The Guardian, who call it the most disappointing film of the year. When you read why they say this, it's all political. It's all politically biased. They don't, and also they're pretty much saying it's too dull. But basically, because all they want and all this person wants, and I'll tell you who that is in a minute, are MCU movies. But the ship is changing. The Titanic is rising, because that's what DC films were, the Titanic. Even though MOS and Batman v Superman are the most amazing, beautiful films I've ever seen, the DCEU's leadership was literally, the ship was being kind of ridden by that captain in the Titanic movie who was just living in denial. Yeah, you know, push it out a bit, keep on going faster, yeah. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? So, but now you've got Walter Hamada, who's running this in a very different fashion, because he's a producer. He's not the man. He's the guy who puts it all together. Now, we had the wonderful Zack Snyder running the whole thing, but he wasn't a producer. Who was the producer? Who was the executive running this thing? They were asking Zack Snyder to run everything, to cast, to plot it all. He's a storyteller, he's a director, he's not an executive. That's the difference between Zack and Walter Hamada. And I said this yesterday. If Zack had worked with Walter, things would have been extremely different. Yeah, there would have had to been a compromise between producer and creative, but I think that could have been reached, because clearly Walter is a very intelligent, thoughtful man who would have been reasonable. So it's a shame that all this wasn't put together with New Line Cinema in the inception of this franchise. And I know Joker movie isn't part of the DCEU, but they're all DC films. They're all part of this wonderful, huge landscape that is DC Comics. And that's really important. So I'm going to read you this review, and then we're going to get into it and talk about it. And then I'm going to talk about Grace Randolph. You'll be surprised by her reaction, because even sometimes, I mean, she's blocked me on Twitter, and I've told you that a lot of times, but also, I think even if someone blocks us and doesn't like us, or we've upset them because they come from a different point of view, when they do something amazing, when they compel you, you should give them credit. And I think that's really, really important. So, Joker review, the most disappointing film of the year. 2 stars, but let's see why. Why so serious? Todd Phillips' solemn but shallow supervillain origins movie has a strong performance by Joaquin Phoenix, but he's weighed down by realist detail and tedious material. So, they call the film shallow. This is the most unshallow film. But of course, this is what they do. This is what SJWs do. This is what Disney-biased people do. They make up lies about something. But the problem is, and this is what I said from the very beginning, no matter what these people do, this film is bulletproof. And they hate it. They no longer have the power. This film is changing the industry, not just within the content. That literally, we're looking at these bloggers and reviewers and critics and saying, nah, you're talking bollocks, you're biased towards Disney, you have a political agenda, and we don't want to listen to you. The year's biggest disappointment has arrived. It emerges with widely grown-up self-importance. There you go. This is exactly what they did with BVS and MOS. Important from the tulip fever of festival award season as an upscale spin on an established pop culture brand. Last year we had Luca Guadagnini's solemn version of Suspiria, and now it's Joker. No, mustn't have serious movies that make a point. One of the things, I just said this on Twitter actually and on my Instagram, what's really, really interesting about the people who don't like this film, it's like they're denying the truth. They don't believe that society are to blame for the world's problems and the horrible things that happen. This film makes commentary about underfunding a city and the consequences to that. The consequences to not funding mental health enough that a guy loses his meds and leads him to act in a way that hurts the whole city. Do you understand? It's a domino effect that these people are so triggered by it, they start making up lies, and it's beautiful. Last year, and now it's Joker from director and co-writer Todd Phillips, a new origin myth for Batman's most famous supervillain opponent. Joaquin Phoenix plays Arthur Fleck, a pathetic loser and loner in Gotham City. Pathetic. The man's suffering with mental health. He's not pathetic. Arthur is a former inpatient at a psychiatric facility, but is now allowed to live with his elderly mother, Penny Frances Conroy. In her scuzzy apartment, poor Arthur has a neurological condition that means he is liable to break into screeching laughter at inopportune moments. He has a crush on his single mum neighbour, Sophie Zazie Beetz. We'll be talking about Zazie a bit later, actually. And pines to be a comedian, a hero-worshipping cheesy TV host, Murray Franklin, Robert De Niro, but he can only get a job as a clown, grinning makeup and floppy-toed shoes, twirling an advertising banner outside a store, where he's bullied and beaten up by young thugs passing by. One day, after the humiliation and despair become too much to bear, Arthur gets hold of a gun and discovers that his talent is not for comedy, but violence. Phillips has already directed film featuring a brilliant, funny figure with learning difficulties, Alan, in The Hangover, played by Zach Galifianakis. That strange but dysfunctional figure who mispronounces the noun, retard. I wonder what Joker would be like with Galifianakis in the lead, while the casting of Phoenix indicates more clearly how sexy Joker is supposed to be. Do you understand? Do you understand how crazy these people are? Yeah. Hang on, we're going to look who wrote this. I bet you it's a woman, but we don't know. I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologise, girls. There is a great production design by Mark Friedberg, some tremendous period cityscape images by cinematographer Lawrence Sher, and a strong performance by Phoenix, though not his best. Not his best. It is not as good as his appearance in Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master. The film holds your attention up until Joker's terrible revenge bloodbath on the subway earlier on, perhaps intended to echo the notorious Bernard Goetz shooting of 1984, although Phillips prudently makes it a non-racist attack. After this, the film loses your interest. No, it doesn't. And if it loses your interest, maybe it was the wrong film for you to go and watch. Where are we? With tedious and forced material about Joker's supposed triggering of anti-capitalist and anti-rich movement, with protesters dressing as clowns, Joker's own criminal and serial killer career bafflingly fizzles. You see, this is a person, I bet you, who's also very, very wealthy. So it's it's boring, isn't it, to talk about mentally ill people, working class people, struggling to make money, struggling to keep their sanity. It must be very, very boring for you, Mr. or Mrs. Rich Person. The film makes references to movies from around the drama's era, such as Death Wish films, The French Connection, maybe even Star Wars, but it's more obviously a laborious and pointless homage to the Scorsese De Niro classic The King of Comedy, with a bit of Taxi Driver, which means that at various moments it's a bit like The King of Comedy and Taxi Driver, only not as good. The connection is signalled by the casting of De Niro himself, but it's nonetheless unearned, unpedantic. Well, how do you expect them to earn the right to shadow classic films? Again, illogical thinking. Well, where are we? Especially compared to Lynn Ramsey, you would never really hear, also starring Phoenix as a loner living with his mum. which managed the connection more adroitly. Now, this is interesting because this is an English newspaper, but this reviewer has said mom, so they're American. Very interesting. The whole idea of the malign clown should be very relevant. We live in an era of trolling incels. Oh, they love that word, incels, don't they? And internet bullying. The grizzly Milo Yiannopoulos described himself as a supervillain on his now cancelled Twitter bio. There's nothing wrong and everything right with engaging with all of this. And the copycat row is a red herring. But perhaps because online aggression is difficult to dramatise, Phillips understandably wanted this film to be set in a pre-web age. Yet he cheats, does he? An anachronistic quasi-YouTube moment into his story when a video of Arthur's catastrophic attempt at stand-up comedy somehow emerges. I wonder if there wasn't an earlier contemporary set draft of the script. It's irrelevant. Again, irrelevant. The Joker's genesis is determinedly mature and uncartoony compared to, say, Jack Nicholson, lower-level crook Jack Napier, falling into a chemical vat in Tim Burton's Batman, turning him into the Joker with the white skin, green hair and Ritger's grin. The look of DC's Joker was originally inspired by Conrad Veidt in a 1928 silent classic, The Man Who Laughs, a man whose face was disfigured into a grin by his father's political enemies. There is no reason why Phoenix's elaborately backstory Joker shouldn't be as powerful as Heath Ledger's mysterious, motiveless, originalist Joker in The Dark Knight. But at some stage, the comic book world of supervillaindom has to be entered, and Ledger was more powerful because he wasn't weighed down with all the realistic detail and overblown ironic noir grandeur, and he wasn't forced to carry an entire story on his own. Oh my God! He carries the film beautifully, Joaquin. It doesn't weigh anything down, and it doesn't weigh him down. You're talking utter nonsense, but never mind. Let's carry on. Where are we? Wasn't forced to carry an entire story on his own. This Joker has just one act in him. The first act. The film somehow manages to be desperately serious and very shallow. Wow, very shallow. Oh yeah, we need to find out who did this. Let's see who did this. Let's see who... Oh, I'm sorry, ladies. It wasn't a feminist going at this film. It was Peter Bradshaw's film of the week. So avoid Peter Bradshaw as a reviewer because he makes up lies and just pretty much, I can guarantee you, Peter is a very, very wealthy man. He doesn't care about this story because this is a story about a real person, a working class person suffering with mental health in our society. Now, it's set in the 80s, late 70s, but that doesn't matter. It's our society, and this is what I'm saying. People don't like it because it's real. It tells them you have a responsibility for your fellow human being, but they don't want it. So whether you're extreme leftist or you're extreme right, you don't believe you have a responsibility for your fellow human being. And what Todd Phillips does here beautifully is just echo that and shadow that. So apparently this is boring. It only has one act. The most disappointing film of the year. For those of you who have seen the film already, comment down below. Is this the most, even if you don't like it, is this the most disappointing film of the year? No. It's a great article title because it gets people triggered and ready to read it, like I did. Bravo, you're amazing. You did a great job there in saying that. So basically, more lies because it doesn't suit them. It doesn't suit their agenda. Because SJWs are a bit like the Sith in Star Wars. There's no absolutes. You're either good or bad. And of course, they perpetuate that they're good. How convenient that they're good and everybody else from another point of view is bad. It's amazing. I see them on Twitter saying things like, oh, there's so many good people. Who are you to say who's good and bad? I said something this morning on Twitter. We are neither good and we are neither bad. We're just flawed people. And we're all flawed. And none of us are perfect. But SJWs don't want to admit that. So that's one. So Grace Randolph does her reviews, not in written form, but in videos. She does a non-spoiler one. And she does a spoiler one. Now, I'm just going to play you just a slight piece of audio on what she says. Then we're going to discuss. Yes, so we're just going to listen to a very little bit of Grace Randolph's non-spoiler review on The Joker. And I was shocked by her comments.
I was kind of in shock after seeing this movie. It's shocking. But that was 2 hours ago it ended. And in that time frame, I've been thinking about it a lot. Not just because I have to review it, but because it really makes you think. And I have come to the conclusion that it's an excellent movie. And that it's not only an excellent movie, but it's an important movie, and perhaps the best movie of the year.
You see, it's very, very, very interesting, isn't it? Now, Grace Randolph is a very triggering person. She says a lot of controversial things. And like all these people, we react really negative to them when they say things about the stuff that we love. Now, I've done the same thing. I will be clear to you, any interaction with Grace I have had on Twitter, I've never been rude to her. I may have said I don't believe she's a DC fan, which looking back is wrong. She's blocked me. I've said that I don't agree with her, but I've never insulted her or put her down or anything like that. But from her point of view, I suppose, she thought, I don't want to hear what this guy thinks. I'm going to block him, which is a shame because her content is very, very interesting. But sometimes I do get triggered by her. But I think it's really important when you don't get on with someone, when they block you, that you don't stay on a hateful thing. It was her priority to, her prerogative to block me. I respect that. I said that on here before. I've spoken positively about her before and negatively. This is life. Life's about balance. But when someone does 2 reviews, and she reviews films twice, so I say non-spoiler and spoiler, and I watched both videos, and I was compelled by both reviews. I was shocked by her reaction and review. I thought she was going to hate the movie. She said pre-movie that she didn't like the idea of Thomas Wayne being a negative character, but she said it made absolute sense. And as I say, you should have known before you came in here, this is a spoiler review, which I'm getting to my spoiler review, but obviously I've read other people's spoiler reviews as well. The one from the newspaper, which we just discussed. But I was shocked by her review because she talks about some truths here. She pretty much says that what Todd Phillips has done is shown us a mirror to ourselves. And I think the people who don't like this film don't like that. And they don't like the fact, they want things to be wrapped up. You see, the extreme left, not my left, by the way, like to do things a certain way when they make films. So they say we're representing a woman of colour, we're representing women. They don't do much with the characters, but they say, hey, we're doing you a favour. There you are. This is the kind of people that they are. And all their content is wrapped around their political agenda and their hatred. And SJWs have got a lot of hate inside them. I don't know why. You'll have to ask them. So they don't make real movies. They don't make films that mean anything. They're just pushing the same stuff all the time. They say they want to represent women, women of colour, minorities. But all they say is, look, the film doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to say anything. But we put you in a starring role. Get down on your knees and thank us for it. That is their attitude. Have no doubt about that. They're the most bigoted, racist people there are. Now, when we talk about Grace Randolph and what she says about this film, it's all true. Now, I will be honest, she didn't like the last scene of this film. She thought that Todd went too far. And, I mean, it's shocking. Shall I tell you? This is a spoiler review anyway. Basically, he's in an asylum. And it's not clear if he's in Arkham, because this is pretty clean. But she starts talking to him. And then he walks down the corridor of the asylum. And it looks like a shadow under his feet, but it's actually blood. Do you want me to tell you? I'm going to tell you. Go away now. He kills that nice psychiatrist, who's better than the original psychiatrist in Gotham. She's being nice to him. She's trying to understand. And she asks him, why are you laughing? And he goes, well, I can't tell you. You wouldn't get the joke. The joke, of course, is he's about to kill her. Now, Grace thought that was too far, but not for me. I think it's a brilliant ending. It really is. Now, they're chasing after him. Do they catch up with him? But anyway, right, it's very, very interesting. Yeah, because orderlies are coming after him. They're obviously going to catch up with him, right? But it's very good. It's very good. I think, look, I don't agree with her there. I think it's a great ending. And I just feel that this film is a powder keg of emotions, not just within the film, but people's reaction. You look at Warner Brothers and you look at Warner Media and you look at how Warner Brothers, led by Kevin Sujihara at the time, became scared of the reactions to Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, and they reacted accordingly. But now, since getting rid of Sujihara, I thought, and I think we all thought, even after they sacked him, they kind of thought, right, you look at Shazam and you look at Aquaman and you think, right, they're not going to be controversial anymore, they're going to tread the party line. But then they go and make Joker, which is the most controversial film you'll ever see. It shouldn't be, really. It's a beautiful, artistically made film, but it's shining a mirror in all of our faces and say, look what we can do to ourselves. Look, by mistreating people, by not looking after people within our own community. This is what happens. And there's lots of kind of examples in this film where you see it. And it's very interesting. I'm going to give you another spoiler now because there's this kind of is he, isn't he? It is Thomas Wayne, Arthur Fleck's father. And they never really answer that, which is very, very interesting, but they give a big hint that he probably is. Now, let's just say that Bruce Wayne and Arthur Fleck are half brothers. Now imagine if we had a sequel with a Batman from that universe. And let's just pretend that it is Robert Pattinson. It probably isn't, right? But let's just pretend. The potential of this Cain and Abel, right? These half brothers going against each other. One's had, a sheltered life, been looked after, even though he saw his parents murdered. And his half-brother, what his half-brother did are the consequences of their deaths. Imagine that. Imagine how special that would be. Now, what's really interesting to me, Grace is a woman who knows a lot within the industry. It's very interesting because she wants to do a video now about how a potential sequel could work. And so I tell you what, Grace, if you see my video, I definitely want to see you do that. And unblock me from Twitter. I won't be mean to you anymore. I'll be more constructive. I'll talk to you. Because basically, even though you are very triggering, you say some oddball things sometimes, in my opinion. Oddball. You see, that's not flattering. That's why you blocked me, wasn't it? Unblock me, Grace. Someone tell Grace to unblock me. To watch my videos, not the ones when I'm not saying very nice things about her. Anyway, right. So I'm pumped to see what she does with that video. I think that Phillips is lying. I think they're all lying. I think this is part of some kind of universe. I don't understand if we'll ever see a Batman. But listen, they even show us Batman's origin. Mini origin. You even see the Joker and a young Bruce Wayne together. It's very, very interesting. They are building something up here. So ultimately, I've got to give you another spoiler. Arthur kills his mother. And I think one of the last words, if I remember rightly, she says to him, because I saw the test screening ages ago, is, "You always look so happy," or "You're always happy." And he says some very chilling words. "I've never been happy a day in my life." Then he smothers her with a pillow. It's such a compelling moment. It's such a compelling moment, an amazing moment, a breathtaking moment. There's moments in the film when I was watching the test screening, I just wanted to cry. I just wanted to cry because there's so many truths. But beyond the truths, beyond the social injustice element and the mental health element, which is so realistic and is a shadow of what's going on in the world today and the bullying that we see on social media, echoed in this film, this is a great version of the fucking Joker. Take all the realism, all the controversy out of it, the brutal violence. This is a freaking amazing comic book origin movie about the Joker. If this wasn't Joaquin Phoenix and he wasn't a guy who wants to do different things. I mean, if you look at Joaquin's movies, very few of them make money. It's all about the art for him. And he's a very unique guy to work with. And I think Todd was able to deal with him and handle him. He's difficult because he's what we call an artiste. And when he's doing the job, and we saw the video sent to Jimmy Kimmel, that's not because he's not a bad person. He just wants to make something real and special. That's all. And that's difficult for people who work with him. But ultimately, people will work with him because he's one of the finest actors this industry has ever seen the likes of. And it's very interesting that that reviewer said it's not his best performance. It at least equals everything he's ever done. But it's difficult to measure because every performance, the first performance I saw was in Gladiator, and that just shocked me how good he was. Amazing. Anyway, and he's and then he goes on Murray Franklin's TV show. I think that's brilliant. That's an amazing moment. Now he's going there to kill himself, and I tell you what, Grace Randolph's review is brilliant, and I'm going to refer back to this maybe a few more times because what she says is very chilling. Maybe he did kill himself, even though he doesn't die. Arthur Fleck dies, and the Joker rises, and he shoots Murray point blank in the face. It's brutal, but before he kills him, you know what he says to him? We get what we deserve. Poof! Amazing. Amazing. What's amazing about this film? I mean, basically, Todd Phillips has said, I wanted to do a real movie and call it Joker so I could get more of an audience. But for a guy who doesn't know much about comics, who maybe isn't that interested in comics, he has looked at the comics and he's given us a lot of beautiful elements from previous Joker, I wouldn't say Joker graphic novels, but Joker's role in the graphic novels, in the Batman stories, and they're there. It's there. This is the Joker. This is what I keep on saying. Beyond everything, beyond it all, beyond the realism, beyond the social justice points he's putting across, this is a great, as I say, it's the great version of the Joker. There are so many moments where you just want to cry in front of everyone and you can't. And it's just amazing. Every time we see a new film, it's either the worst ever or the best ever. I don't want to put either tags on this film. It's so incredibly different, but this is a DC movie, and I think it's very loyal to the comics. It's very loyal to that universe, but what it's done, it's an art house movie. Man of Steel is an art house movie, but more bordering between an art house movie and a blockbuster movie. Now, Batman v Superman is a proper art house movie. And if you look at Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman's like Man of Steel. It borders on the artistic to the mainstream. It sways the line all the time. Probably in a more clever, coherent way than Man of Steel. So that's why that film's lauded more than Man of Steel. But they do the same thing very cleverly. So DC films, since 2013, have a very artistic style, including Suicide Squad, including Aquaman, and including Shazam. And this is one of the things that I'm proud to be a DC fan, is these artistic modern takes on these films. Now, they're not everyone's cup of tea, and there's a lot of toxic reaction to these films, and that's because they do take a different way of making these films. They could have easily said from the beginning, let's do what Marvel are doing. Let's do all these individual movies, group them into a Justice League. That would have worked for Justice League, but not for the rest. Now, as I say, Joker is a powder keg movie, right? So it's a powder keg movie for so many reasons, because suddenly Warner Brothers have become very aggressive and said, we are going to make auteur, or however you say the words, director-driven movies. We are going to allow those filmmakers and storytellers visions, and we do not care about the reaction, because basically the reaction to Joker, the controversy, that letter from the leader of the victims from the cinema shooting, it all works for Warner Brothers. You see, with Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, that controversy wasn't handled by them; it was thrown at them. But they have manipulated this controversy so beautifully. And then there's more controversy, and there's more controversy, and it's working for them. The pre-sales are, I read yesterday, apparently the pre-sales apparently are going to make it a bigger hit than Aquaman, opening weekend for sure, bigger than Shazam, which wouldn't be that difficult, of course. But basically, this is going to be a huge opening for an R-rated movie. It's definitely going to beat Venom's last year, which was amazing. Venom had major issues. This film is near on perfect from a filmmaker's point of view. The issues that people are not happy with are not in the filmmaking. Well, and elements of that were with people's issues for BBS and MOS, right? This is actually not because the film's not made properly, or they miss out a beat, or they don't like the editing, or the CGI, and there's no CGI in this film to get upset about. Anyway, this film is going to change everything. And it puts those over at Disney in a very difficult position, and all they can keep on doing is throw out those SJW tropes. I told you, whatever is Waititi, the director of Thor Ragnarok, right? He came out and tried to be clever against Todd Phillips. Funny thing is, he's going to be in a DC movie. He's going to cameo in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. So it's all very, very interesting. I'll come back to Joker. I want to say something. At the start of the week, James Gunn said he got a good luck message from Marvel, right? He said, I want Marvel and DC fans to come together. I don't understand their negativity, blah, blah, blah. I might have even mentioned it on a video before. And I've also said this is why these people don't get it. They don't get it. If you look at it, why there's such a toxicity between both fans, it's because MCU fans have been pretty horrible about our movies, James. And I think you should think about that. Anyway, I've spoken about that before. So, looking back at this movie, it's just, what's interesting about that review I read to you is after the first act, apparently it's boring. And I just don't understand that. It just goes to show me what kind of films this person is used to watching. This is not a boring film. It's a slow burn, but it's beautiful. It is beautiful and shocking and devastating. And as Grace said, she thought about this film. This is what you're going to do. It's one of those films. It's like the films we grew up with. It gets you thinking. After falling down, you sit there thinking, if there's something people could have done differently for this guy. And it's always the same, isn't it, with these lonely people who do these horrible acts. Some people will call them just pure evil. They don't really want to think about a societal solution. But when we see this film, we nod our heads and we say, even if we don't want to admit it, that this film is telling us something, that we all need to be a little bit more accepting. Society has changed. Computers have changed everything. Social media have changed everything. We now have platforms like this. I'm on YouTube and I'm giving you my opinion. Everyone's opinion is aired, and that creates new problems and new hatreds and new toxicities. Because when I was growing up, the only people's opinions I knew were my families and my friends. I didn't know, but now you make all these new friends, you get to know these people with different opinions. And it's funny, isn't it? We can get on with each other on social media, boom. One of us says one thing we don't agree with, all of a sudden we're blocking each other. It's crazy. And this is why if I like someone on Twitter and I hate what they're saying, I just kind of ignore it. I don't react to it because I take a deep breath because I want to keep those people. I don't want to be blocked by them. I don't want to block them. And this is where you have to change the way you're thinking. Joker movie is a 10 out of 10 movie. You will never see a film like this again. But what you're going to see are films by DC, well, the films that they want to make, not the films that bloggers, what they've done to these people now, have said, you're not important. You're not important anymore. You tried to take us down with Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. It's time for us to show you who's in charge. We're $1 trillion studio. We can do what we want. And really, this is the truth of the Joker movie. They can now do what they want. They've made a gripping, compelling, frightening movie about society and societal problems. And there's a lot of people who are offended by that. But they can't touch this movie. Oh yes, they've tried. They've tried to go for the actor. They've tried to go for the director. To no avail. Everybody wants to see this film. This film isn't the disappointment of the year. It's the success story of the year. And this is where we're going to finish off for today. What do you think? Have you seen the Joker movie? Are you excited about the direction that DC is going in? Because I am. Very interesting now. They're going to attract a lot of filmmakers that you won't see on the MCU. A lot of actors are going to say, well, hang on a minute. I want some of what Joaquin's been getting there. So we are at a very interesting time. Money talks, bullshit walks. This film is going to make money and it's going to get acclaim. But because of SJW shouting so loudly against it, will this hurt its chances with the Academy? Well, the Academy have been known to give awards to films and actors who are controversial before, so I don't think it's going to affect it. If this film makes at least $800 million, and there's no reason why it shouldn't, right? And it win an Oscar for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor. What does that say about the direction that WB are going in? 1 minute, Marvel this, Marvel that, they've made $1 billion, they've made $2 billion. But what if DC films start getting acclaim, and a high box office? What does that do to Feige? What does it do to his thinking? Because, in truth, there's nothing he can do about it. See you tomorrow.